because he didn't even need to spend that money on a campaign. He was on national television again and again and again and again.
Right.
So they were
because
a player. They were
television.
a player at these events.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
he knows television very well. You know.
Right. Yeah. It's we live in a very weird world. What is it? It's an ancient Chinese curse that you live in interesting times. Well, I think we do.
Yeah. But the problem is that I was, if I was to be a pollster, I got it wrong too. At every bit, when you talk about John McCain, I like people who weren't captured. I thought that's outrageous. John McCain, even though he's on the Republican side, because he was a POW and has served his country faithfully, he deserves that respect. And so for Donald Trump to say, I like people that weren't, so I thought, okay, there, he just counted himself out of the election. No, his popularity went up. And then with the Pocahontas and everything else, and Rosie O'Donnell, just you can name it, speaking about Latino groups wanting to ban all Muslims coming into this country, I think that we're looking at the rise of the Third Reich. It's just so frightening.
It's extremely frightening. And wasn't recently he's talking about the freedom of the press. And there was something, I saw some reference to him not wanting certain news outlets to be present at his campaign event.
He revoked the credentials of the Washington Post yesterday. So he didn't like something in the Washington Post, revoked their credentials. Okay, that's not going to stop the Washington Post from printing Trump articles, but that's going to ban them from his events.
Right. But, you're mentioning the Third Reich.
You can't knock out the entire
controlling
media.
The media. Right. I mean, it's a world in which it would be extremely difficult. You couldn't control it now like it used to be. Things now, media is a whole different beast, and there's no controlling it. However, that implication that would be the desire is a frightening thing.
The last Trump point I want to make is that there was a press conference sometime over the last 14 days where he went off about the press. And as they started to ask the tougher questions, and this is exactly what some of the top pollsters, ones that Chuck Todd, everybody that I really trust and respect, and they've really got their finger on the political pulse, they knew that once Trump had secured the nomination, was guaranteed to be the Republican candidate, that the nice, okay, let's sit down with the microphone, Mr. Trump now, was going to go away, and they were going to start to ask tough questions about the tax returns, building the wall with Mexico. And so they're really starting to ask the difficult questions, and he's getting madder and madder and just going off about the press. But those are all legitimate questions to ask of the man who is running for the presidency of the United States. Those are legitimate questions, and he's just behaving like a man-child, for lack of a better term. And he turned 70 today. This is Donald Trump's 70th birthday. So what's going on? Is he a man-child?
Yeah, that's a really excellent description of him, though. That's what he reminds me of. He's like a spoiled little brat. Hillary mentioned the other day, I think, about how you're supposed to act as a presidential candidate in the light of this kind of a tragedy. And you look at what she said, you look at what President Obama said, and you compare the minimal, I don't even know, did he even make a speech about what's happened, or is it just in tweets and little one-offs? It shows a lot. I mean, Mrs. Clinton's comments were very on target, on point, and presidential. And President Obama's speech was amazing. He's a man with emotion, and eloquence, and intelligence, and then you have Mr. Trump acting like a spoiled little brat. So I don't know how people can vote for him. Maybe they remind them of their
Well, I want to ask you about Obama. I want to ask you about President Obama. So President Obama made a formal endorsement of candidate Hillary Clinton within the last week, and obviously, Hillary Clinton having the endorsement of the Human Rights Campaign, Jim McGurk, several other key players within the LGBT community. do you see Hillary Clinton as being a comparable president to continue the historic gains that the LGBT community saw under President Obama? Does Hillary Clinton make sense as far as continuing the mantle towards bringing us towards equality, civil rights, hate crime laws? Do you think that Hillary Clinton will continue the LGBT equality fight? Is that a given?
It seems like it. I haven't thought about it in those terms. I view her as the best qualified for the job. But then again, you had, Barack Obama coming in, who wasn't on paper very qualified at all. And I think he's done some really amazing things. A lot of people would argue about him as a president, as they argue about everything, but he's done some really amazing things and faced some significant challenges. So certainly she is the most qualified. I think that she seems to be very closely aligned to him with these social issues, so presumably she would keep marching forward with them. She certainly seems to be an ally of the LGBTQ community. She certainly says the right things. I haven't really followed her voting record on stuff like that. I know that there's been accusations of her changing over the years, but my views have changed a lot in the last 10 years. I don't know about yours, and society has swung a lot in that time period. So it doesn't surprise me or make me think that she's a hypocrite or anything, that her votes may have changed over time. She seems like she would certainly be carrying the mantle, I think. What do you think?
Well, I absolutely do, and I've been, I should just say a disclaimer, I've been a Hillary Clinton supporter for 20 plus years, but in the 2008 campaign specifically, I was hoping for and counting on the Hillary Clinton presidency, and so therefore, because I was basically a one-horse candidate, I didn't even pay any attention to this Senator Barack Obama, so I didn't understand. Right. I didn't understand that at all, and so when he had this historic win, it just took me by surprise because I felt that it was coronation time for Hillary Clinton. So you have to imagine that now, in 2016, I'm beyond ready to install her in the White House.
Yes, I bet you would be. And isn't it interesting that they had this turnaround where they had a fairly contentious campaign struggle, and then she had to sort of turn gracious and hand the mantle over to him and support his and
that was her Bernie Sanders moment. That's what I am waiting for Bernie Sanders to do, because she spoke out at the convention, asked for people to support and get behind Barack Obama. One thing I will say about the Obama-Clinton, primary race to the White House, there was a YouTube video in 2008 that portrayed her as Darth Vader and sort of had Barack Obama as Luke Skywalker, and I showed it at both Thanksgiving and Christmas to my family. So literally we spent the holidays watching basically primary debates and discussions between them in that Star Wars video. It's one of my favorite of all time, but
I'll have to Google that.
Now how the times have changed. Now the president has come out in support for Hillary Clinton and has said this is our next president, and that is the right thing to unify the party. Unfortunately, Joe Biden isn't quite there yet, and I'm not sure what the VP's holdout is. She's the one with the votes.
And that was another case where President Obama's speech was extremely admirable. I thought that was just a wonderful speech when he endorsed her, and just the show of unity and the recognition of her accomplishments and her qualifications. And I mean, obviously, why wouldn't he be, given her role?
Right.
But
unfortunately, the president had to come out before the TV cameras this week for his 15th time during his presidency to speak about a mass shooting, and it's just something that we've seen that's all too familiar and become sort of procedural. But when he was speaking about the LGBT community in this 5-minute presser, I really felt it, and I felt it when he gave the speech about Sandy Hook. I just feel for the president that part of his official duty when there's such a catastrophic loss of life like this is he has to give these pressers. So that duty, unfortunately, may eventually fall on the future President Clinton. I do want to transition here at the end. We always end up having you on, and there's these incredible circumstances that pull us away from your original work. So you are an author. I'd like you to give a chance to talk about the book real quick. What is your book, and where can listeners find that?
Oh, sure. Well, I've written this little picture book for kids. It's called RUMPLEPIMPLE, and it's a little adventure tale about a dog hero. He's got 2 moms and a bossy sister cat named Chicken. And he ends up going to the grocery store with his mom and jumping out of the car and running in. And while in there, he helps a little girl from a bully who's trying to steal her blanket. And one of his moms storms in, finds him, and of course he's in trouble. So the idea of this story was tapping into the universal feeling of being misunderstood. And kids are often, all humans, all ages, I suppose, are often frustrated by wanting to do the right thing, trying to do the right thing, and yet doing something that gets them in trouble, or a vase gets broken because you're playing, or whatever it might be. So that was kind of there's a few messages. One is the sort of the bullying thing. One is this feeling misunderstood thing, and that your moms are boring. And one of them is that he does have 2 moms, and it's not a Heather has 2 mommies kind of a statement book. It's just a book out there with a character who happens to have a same-sex couple as parents. And I think that, that's sort of the next stage of acceptance into the culture within literature is you start with a wave of books that explain things. We don't need books anymore that say, teacher, why is Johnny's skin so dark, or something like that, because, obviously we've got books with people of color in them, and, and the same thing with the gay and lesbian and now coming on trans issues. We just need books where those are what the families are like, so that kids recognize them, feel comfortable with them, and those children who have families who are diverse have books that represent what their family structure is like. So that's that little book.
And have we advanced, Suzanne? I remember when a book like Heather Has 2 Mommies came out, here near almost 20 years or so ago, and libraries took offense to it, and teachers took offense to it, and everybody's hair stood up on end. Is it more normal now to release a book like RUMPLEPIMPLE showing 2 mommies? Because when we're looking at what's going on with educators becoming more aware of the LGBT and transgender issues and helping people to identify and deal with those issues of really, really young students, what's the reaction to your book is basically what I'm trying to get at. Has it been well received? Is it in schools? Like where do you think your book is physically located?
That's been kind of fascinating to watch too. Some online chatter again is saying this is revolting. You're teaching kids sexual immorality, and why are you teaching kids about sex and stuff like that? Which is just ridiculous because the parents are just there. It's not like sex has nothing to do with the book. But the vast majority of our experience has been really, really good. I did I've been in a variety of classrooms, starting in Massachusetts, where the same-sex couples are pretty quite common. And though I was invited to do a Skype reading in a classroom in Texas, where presumably they are not so common, and the teacher was extremely gracious. The kids loved it. And here in Missouri, I'm connecting with the library and local bookstores. We've just gotten started because we didn't move very long ago. To do readings, and no one has batted an eye yet. So I think it's been surprisingly little resistance, which is a wonderful thing.
Good.
And there has been also, there's these targets, there's these places that collect those kinds of resources. There's a librarian who collects books